Manic Panic sent a legal threat over 2 words, Deadly Nightshade. One indie beauty brand did not go quiet. It held a funeral for the name, buried it on camera, and put the same lipstick back on sale as Ceased-and-Desist. That may be the most expensive product rename nobody had to pay an agency to invent. Necromancy Cosmetica posted the response in 2 acts. First, a black and white love letter setup turns into a cease and desist. Then, the shade is treated like a body at a tiny goth funeral. The follow-up lands the punchline. Same deadly shade, new name, ceased and deceased. This is not a rumor about a private email somebody vaguely remembers. The brand built the demand into its own public product campaign. And once a legal warning becomes the launch creative, the fight is no longer happening only between lawyers. It is happening in front of customers. The name did not come from nowhere. United States records list Deadly Nightshade as a registered mark for cosmetics and hair care products, including makeup, lipstick, hair dyes, and hair colors. The application was filed in 1995. The registration issued in 1996, and the record lists first commercial use in 1994. So, Manic Panic is not simply claiming ownership because the phrase sounds on brand. It has a long paper trail, and it still sells a dark purple hair color under that name today. That fact makes the conflict stronger, not weaker. The question is not whether a registration exists. It does. The question is, what happened when that registration met 2 smaller beauty businesses using the same shade name in very different places? Necromancy is not another mass-market hair brand. It is a small Puerto Rico-based cosmetics company known for unusual lip colors, gothic packaging, and products made in small batches. That difference in scale is what gives the response its energy. A decades-old alternative beauty name sends pressure downward, and the smaller label answers by turning the pressure into theater. Before this dispute, independent reviewers were already describing Necromancy as a tiny operation making lipsticks and eye products by hand. That matters because the viral response was not produced by a giant crisis team. It came from the same people filming swatches, packing products, and staging their own shoots. Then a second account made the conflict look less like a one-off misunderstanding. Australian cosmetics creator Fanny Barlow says she received a cease and desist tied to a United States registration she did not know existed. She says she asked for the registration, pointed out that she operates in Australia, and rejected the idea that the American record automatically decided her position there. Then, according to her post, the pressure escalated. Fanny says she received a demand to destroy stock and provide sales records. Her answer was blunt. She would do neither. She also says she holds the Australian Deadly Nightshade mark herself. That last point is her stated position. The approved source pack does not independently establish the Australian registration. But the part that drove the backlash is visible in her own words. She says the demand moved from stop using the name to destroy the product. The geography changes the stakes. Necromancy operates in Puerto Rico, a United States territory, and chose to rename the lipstick. Fanny says her business is in Australia and chose open refusal. That does not let a commentary video decide whose legal theory wins. It does show why the same type of demand produced 2 completely different public reactions. One recipient said no. The other complied with the name change, then made the compliance so sarcastic that the new name became more memorable than the old one. And that is where the enforcement strategy starts to look like a publicity problem. The warning was supposed to protect Deadly Nightshade. Instead, customers began repeating ceased and desist. Necromancy did not erase the shade from existence. It changed the label and kept the product visible. The current listing describes Ceased and Desist as a light gray lipstick with soft blue undertones, handcrafted in small batches in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The product footage makes the joke clearer than any slogan could. A hand swatches the shade, the new name appears beside it, and the color itself stays exactly where it was. The brand did what the letter demanded at the naming level while making the demand the central piece of the relaunch. That is the kind of response that creates a strategic trap. Complain again and the joke gets another episode. Ignore it and the renamed product keeps selling with the legal fight baked into the product page. And then the name collision gets stranger. A current Mooncat nail polish is also called Deadly Nightshade. Independent demos posted this summer show the polish shifting green and gold over black, and reading more purple over a purple base. There is no evidence in this source pack that Mooncat received a letter. The point is not to invent a third target. The point is that Deadly Nightshade is still moving through beauty as a shade concept across hair, lipstick, and nails. Manic Panic's registration includes cosmetics and lipstick as well as hair color. But a registration record alone does not tell viewers how every cross-brand use would be resolved. What it does tell us is why a tiny lipstick rename suddenly became a beauty community argument instead of a private naming dispute. The clapback works because it does three jobs at once. First, it confirms that Necromancy changed the name. Second, it tells customers exactly why the change happened without a long corporate statement. Third, it makes the smaller brand look completely at home in its own aesthetic. Death, mourning, black humor, and makeup. Nothing in the response feels pasted onto the brand. The coffin-style framing, the funeral performance, and the phrase ceased and deceased all look like material Necromancy might have created even without a dispute. That makes the legal pressure feel less like an interruption and more like free creative direction. The sharpest detail is that the audience does not have to understand trademark law to understand the joke. A brand told them to cease, they came back deceased. There is another side to the optics. If a company has used a name for decades and maintains a registration covering the same product category, doing nothing can create its own problem. Brand protection is not automatically bullying, and the official footage shows that Deadly Nightshade is not a forgotten entry buried in an old catalog. Manic Panic has continued to market it, but legal logic and audience logic are not the same thing. A lawyer sees a registered phrase and overlapping cosmetics. A customer sees a giant alternative beauty institution pressuring a two-person goth brand over the name of a poisonous plant. Both images can exist at once. The failure happens when a company prepares for the first audience and forgets the second one is holding a phone. No direct public Manic Panic response to Fanny's or Necromancy's specific posts was located in the approved source pack. That absence does not prove a motive. It does mean the most shareable public explanation currently belongs to the recipients. Fanny's version is refusal. An American demand arrived in Australia, escalated to stock destruction, and she said no. Necromancy's version is performance. The old name died, the product survived, and the demand became merchandise. Meanwhile, Manic Panic's visible side of the story is the registration record and its continuing use of the shade. That may be enough for formal enforcement. It is not enough to win a feed where the competing message is a funeral and a perfect pun. The backfire is not that Manic Panic lost a court case. There is no court ruling in this source pack. The backfire is that an attempt to control one product name created a stronger product name for somebody else. Before the dispute, Deadly Nightshade was one gray lipstick in a small indie catalog. After the demand, Ceased and Desist became a story. The shade with a funeral, a letter, a villain in the audience's imagination, and a reason to share the link. That is the danger of sending pressure to a brand whose entire identity is built to metabolize darkness. Necromancy did not need to deny that a letter arrived. It just needed to make the letter look like the opening scene. Manic Panic may have protected a name it has used for decades. It also may have handed a two-person competitor the most memorable beauty launch of the week. That is the real tension. When does enforcing a brand make the brand look stronger, and when does it make the target look cooler? Because the letter can demand that a name disappear. It cannot control what replaces it. And this time, what replaced Deadly Nightshade was a product called Cease-and-Desist, and a story people were far more interested in repeating. So who won the public fight? The company holding the registration or the brand that turned it into a punchline?